I'm John Dennis. I'm running against Nancy Pelosi.
We have the most beautiful state and one of the most beautiful places in the world, and people are leaving.
I'm gonna catch you when all the cameras aren't around, and I'm gonna you up. Oh, quiet.
He's the chairman of the San Francisco GOP, and he's running against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Step back, everyone.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to John Dennis Report for April 19, 2021. Thanks for joining us. Great weekend. Hope you had one too. One thing that did happen, I'll tell you a quick story as people start funneling in. And if you can bear with me, I'm going to open up a couple things so I can monitor your comments. But so this weekend I was coming home. I was at a thing over on the other side of San Francisco, out on the west side of town. And my wife's traveling. She's in Nebraska, which, by the way, had a big shooting at a mall that she and her mom go to. Okay, but let me talk about that maybe tomorrow. But in any event, so I stop at a supermarket on the way home, and hold on, yeah. So stop at a supermarket and leave, and I'm driving down the highway like 5-8 minutes away from the supermarket. And I go, oh, shoot, I can't feel my wallet. So I call the store. I see, do you have it there? They said, no. I turned around. I went back, looked for the wallet in the parking lot, looked at where, the checkout counter where I was. Nobody found it. I was like, oh, damn it. I have got to go start dealing with this. So think about that when you lose your wallet. What a pain in the neck it is. Got to, first of all, deal with your driver's license. Now, by the way, I sent my passport in. It was about to expire in June, so I sent it in. I sent it in early enough. I'm not traveling out of the country, so let me just send it in on the slow boat. I'll get it back whenever I get back. No rush. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a valid passport. I have no identification. How difficult is that? All my credit cards. I have credit cards in this wallet. I don't even know what credit cards I have in there. So I would have to deal with that. And then getting them, and then it's like, what do I do? And then I've got to deal with the DMV, and go down there. Oh, is there anything? Maybe dealing with the IRS is the only thing worse than having to go to the DMV. So anyway, I'm just sitting there. I'm bummed. I'm cooking dinner for my daughter last night. We sit down, we're chatting, and my doorbell rings. And my doorbell rings through my phone. So I pick it up. I'm like, hello. And there's a guy outside. And he goes, John Dennis? I said, yes. He said, John Dennis? I said, yes. He said, can you come down, sir? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I go down there. And this guy found my wallet on the at the supermarket where I was shopping. So there's like a magnetic part of the wallet that is like the billfold. And somehow, when I went to put my wallet back into my pocket, it attached to the shopping cart, that magnetic part. So this guy was like an Instacart worker or something like that, a delivery guy, and he was shopping. And when he finished shopping, he unloaded everything into his car, and he looked down, and there's my wallet stuck to the bottom of the shopping cart. And this guy, by the way, this is like, because I was out on the other side of town, this is not in my neighborhood. This guy got in his car, a delivery guy, must have made his delivery, and then drove from wherever he was, which is presumably at least 25 minutes away, drove to my house and gave me my wallet. Think about that. I mean, that is like, you used to hear about stuff like that in Switzerland. People are so honest. They go out of their way to return your wallet. This guy came to my house and to give me the wallet. And I, said, please don't go anywhere. And I rushed and I gave him a bunch of money. And he's like, I didn't do it for the money. And I said, I know you didn't. You did it because you're a good guy and that you were a good man. Thank you so much for doing this. Think about all of the headache that this guy saved for me from having to dealing with credit card companies and driver's license. Oh my gosh. So actually, after he left, I thought, oh shoot, I should have gotten his name, found out the company he worked for, because I say Instacart, I don't know who it was. and it could have been Safeway delivery or whatever it is. And I should have really, touted him. And this morning when I woke up, I thought about it, and I said to myself, as it turns out, I am not, I don't want to bring this up, but it turns out we weren't the same race. Let's just put it that way. And, this is sort of what life has been like for me. I don't know about you, but what it's been like for me, my whole life. I don't really think in those terms, in terms of, separating or dividing us. He was just between race. This was a guy who just did an immensely decent thing. I mean, I can't even believe that somebody actually did it in this day and age, but he went out of his way to do this. Certainly didn't do it for the money. I mean, I could have, lived in some little apartment or something like that, and he, wouldn't have expected to get anything out of it. He was just doing the right thing. And man, I got to tell you that, that's the way life should be, is that it just should be trying to do the right thing for one another, and don't bring these despicable, race discussions into it. I would have done it for someone else, and he did it for me, and it was just a really wonderful thing. So I want to thank that guy again. He was a great guy, saved me a lot of trouble, and I hope to pay it forward with somebody else in the future. I think I try and do that on a regular basis in my my private life, in other areas, and maybe this is one of the reasons why this got paid forward back to me. But so grateful, and it's a really nice story. So anyway, moving on. The big story of the day is the George Floyd trial, Derek Chauvin's murder trial, or whatever his charges are in that trial. Everyone's talking about it. Apparently, the jury is now, the trial's completed. The jury has begun deliberations, and we're going to get a verdict, I suppose, at some point. I followed this trial a little bit, and I can't say what's going to happen. I don't know. I've heard different things. It seems to me like he should be acquitted, just because of the toxicology report, and also because of the prosecution's own witness. I think on the first day was saying that the position that Derek Chauvin had George Floyd in couldn't have caused his death. The prosecution witness said that. Now, subsequent witnesses have said that yes, he was, he had him in a bad position. But I don't think that anyone is saying that the way he was leaning, even if he was putting the full force of his weight on his neck, that was preventing George Floyd from breathing. So, I mean, it seems like he should be acquitted. I know Jack Posobiec has been saying that, because he responded to one of my tweets last week, saying that he thinks that the jury is probably going to deliver a lesser charge just as an appeasement. Keep in mind, he was saying that these jurors every day have been coming in facing protesters. And, that's one of the things that's come out of this, is that there should have been a change of venue on this trial. In fact, I mean, it should have been moved out of state, frankly. But it certainly shouldn't have been in and around Minneapolis, St. Paul, because it's way too divisive. And they should have made it difficult, put it in a place that was difficult for protesters to get to, because this has become a circus already. And we have a situation where, there's been, jury and witness intimidation. A witness who testified on behalf of the defense had pig's blood, a severed pig's head, put in front of his house. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I mean, this jury is not sequestered. They have access to the news, so they hear about this sort of thing. Do you think that isn't cause for a mistrial? This has been terribly irresponsible, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I think either way, they're going to be riots. I just think they're going to be riots. I mean, even if there's, he gets convicted of murder in the first degree, which I don't even know is possible, and it doesn't seem reasonable that he woke up in the morning Chauvin woke up in the morning planning to kill George Floyd. But even if you have that kind of a verdict, I still think you're going to see riots. I think you're going to see riots of celebration, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh, it's okay, it's just property." So anyway, we'll keep an eye on it. I'll follow it a little bit more carefully this week, and bring you some other thoughts on it. But my suspicion is we're going to see riots. And by the way, we're not going to just see riots in Minneapolis, St. Paul, but you're going to see sympathy riots in the riot network across the country. Portland is always looking for a reason to riot. Seattle might get in on the act. New York, Oakland. It's funny, San Francisco hasn't really caught riot fever just yet. I've talked to a couple of elected officials in town about why that is, and they have theories. I have another one, but we'll discuss that another time. In any event, one of the reasons why I'm sure we're going to have a riot, certainly if Chauvin is acquitted, is because people like Maxine Waters are inciting violence. Mario, can you get that clip up? Folks, I want to play you this clip. It's about 30 seconds, and you may have seen it already, but let's just play it so we can give some context for the comments. Go ahead.
No, not manslaughter. No. This is guilty for murder. I don't know whether it's in the first degree, but as far as I'm concerned, it's first degree murder.
Congresswoman, what happens if we do not get what you just told? What should the people do? What should protesters on the street do?
I didn't hear you.
What happens?
What should protesters do?
So yeah, here's the important thing. The sound is a little different on my computer. I don't know how you can hear it, but they're asking, what should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
Not just men.
So she says that we have to get more active. We have to get more confrontational. So earlier today, I put out a tweet saying that, there's a guy in San Francisco. I don't want to give him attention, but he's been poking at me. He's actually like a well-educated guy. Went to Stanford. I think has won maybe a master's degree in Stanford, and good pedigree in terms of education. Who's actually making the argument for restriction of speech, hate speech. Can you imagine? Someone is putting it out to the world that they are against free speech. Okay, fine. And of course, this person makes this argument that there are already restrictions on free speech, and he cites examples. And the examples he cites, of course, are when use of speech leads to a crime, and hate speech is different, because hate speech leads to someone's feelings getting hurt. There's no crime. That's not a crime, by the way, hurting someone's feelings. So in any event, Brandenburg versus Ohio makes a pretty clear case as to what the standard is for when free speech needs to be restricted. And in that, let me just pull this up. All right. So here's what it says: the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, and this is the quote part, is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Now, Donald Trump hasn't been charged with anything, but he certainly was impeached a second time, which is a consequence, even though it's a political trial. He was impeached because of the rally and protest that they had on January 6th, a protest during which he said that we will peacefully protest. Here we have, in contrast, Maxine Waters saying that she's basically inciting a riot. She is get more confrontational. Now, She's stepped it back a little bit and put up this next one, saying that that she is nonviolent after urging protesters to quote unquote get more confrontational. But I beg your pardon. That horse has already left the barn. She already said what she said, and incidentally, it's not the first time. For those of you who remember, when she was at some rally some years ago, a few years back, I think in the first year of the Trump presidency, she told people, instructed them to get in the face of people in the Trump administration, to basically harass them. She's already got this penchant for inciting people to activity that is going to, she's just said, get more confrontational. What happens when you get to confrontation? What are the percentages of confrontations that lead to violence? I think a pretty significant one is certainly in this environment that we have now. I mean, people got confrontational in Minneapolis over last summer. What happened there? Assault, looting, arson, destruction of property. I mean, this is her coming in to a gas barrel and lighting a match. She's igniting this situation, and I don't know. I mean, is there a case to be made that she should be charged for inciting a riot if a riot actually ensues? I think so, but there certainly should be political consequences. And I'm not making a stretch here. This is not a partisan stretch. This is a legal question, and if there are any lawyers out there, I'd be happy to hear your comments and thoughts on this. But it seems to me that she is subject to scrutiny and maybe even investigation and maybe even criminal charges here. It seems that way, and that leads me to the tweet that I just put out a few minutes ago, which is, Nancy Pelosi, didn't you say that no one is above the law? Isn't no one above the law, Nancy Pelosi? Well, apparently some people are. Maxine Waters apparently is. Hunter Biden apparently is above the law. Anybody associated with Nancy Pelosi and her grift is apparently above the law. If you're on the, if you're in the Pelosi wing of the Democrat Party, if you're in the Democrat Party, there's a certain loyalty that Nancy Pelosi feels, that she's got to extend to you, and she is not going to call for you to be arrested. So in any event, that's where we stand right now. This feels like jury tampering. The venue should have been changed, and it's a disgrace about what's happening there. And Nancy Pelosi, if she doesn't bring up charges or reprimand Maxine Waters in some way, some public way, then whatever shred of credibility that she had left, and I would dare to say that she doesn't have much, certainly on one side of the aisle, but I think even on her side of the aisle, she's going to lose whatever credibility she has left in the Democrat caucus. Okay, let's move on. I want to make a quick comment about this, and really don't want to spend a ton of time on it, other than to make sort of a generalization. So I guess the Oath Keepers are under scrutiny because of their involvement in January 6th and for some other reasons. Yeah, we can get rid of that one. Yeah, there's nothing really there. And I just want to say, I met the founder of Oath Keepers years ago. Like, I had dinner with him. I've met him a few times, and I had dinner with him here in San Francisco after an event. A guy by the name of Stuart Rhodes. He had a problem with his eye, and apparently since that time, I haven't seen him since then, but he lost his eye. And he was a very nice guy. His son was with us. God, his son's got to be in his 20s now, because this is literally like 10 years ago that we had dinner here in San Francisco with a group of people. And very nice guy. Yale. I remember went to Yale Law School. Great education. And smart guy. And the reason for the founding of the Oath Keepers, actually maybe it was 2009. But in any event, the founding of the Oath Keepers was, under Obama, there was some real concern that the police were getting out of control against the right, and that they were, going to do something in the area of gun confiscation. And there was general concern about the abuse of power from the Obama administration targeting political opponents and people, ideological opponents as well. And of course, there was some smoke there. Some of these groups on the right were audited by the IRS. That's never been resolved. The not-for-profits who opposed Obama were audited by the IRS. There were just, there was targeted investigations. And the Oath Keepers were started as a group that took an oath that they would not follow any orders that were unconstitutional. That was it. That simple. Now, I know a lot of folks on the left were not happy about that because that implied that people were going to get orders or would be given orders which were unconstitutional. And so, like, I remember Chris Matthews from MSNBC getting furious about that and saying he's not going to give unconstitutional orders, and there was an implication in the formation of it. But it was a rather benign group. I mean, they opposed the overreach of the federal government. The Oath Keepers wanted the federal government to stay within its restraints as prescribed in the Constitution, which I think is a pretty reasonable thing. Now, over the years, since I've seen Stewart, I don't know what's happened to the organization, if it's really changed, but I do know that there are some concerns about them taking a more active role in January 6th and planning it. And of course, was totally not on board with any of that stuff when it was happening. I was like, get out of the Capitol. But it's interesting what happens when these groups start and what they morph into, the premise they start with and what they move into. And there's also, I think, some that there are some people who want to vilify some of these groups, like another group that I'm I'm vaguely familiar with. I mean, I've heard the name, of course, and I know a little bit because I know a little bit about Gavin McInnes and the starting of the Proud Boys. And the Proud Boys started out as a bunch of guys who just wanted to get together and be proud of their masculinity in a world that is increasingly anti-boy. And I think there's legitimacy there. I think that's a legitimate issue. What it's morphed into, from what I understand, is people modeling their own lives on Gavin's life, which was, Gavin was involved in punk rock, and he was a wild man in New York City, running around doing drugs and drinking too much, and getting into escapades with people. And then he said when his 20s were over, it was time to be a man and settle down and have a family and put those things behind you. But he said he personally recommends that people do drugs in their 20s. And so it's easy to see with that kind of foundation that people will get involved in that organization. The organization will get out of control. I don't think that's a good idea for people to recommend, for grown men to recommend that other men, younger men, get involved with drugs in their 20s. Like, there's some reason that it works in your 20s and then you stop using them and move on. It's a stupid idea. It's not to say that everything about the Proud Boys is a bad thing, but that part I'm not with. I don't think that's a smart idea. But these things start out with with a certain premise, and then they move into other areas, and it's well, we'll see what happens with them. But I just wanted to put that out there. I'm watching this. I don't find, even in their current form, I don't find either organization to be extreme. I think there has been an excuse for the media to find bogeymen, frankly, because the truth of the matter is there aren't many white supremacists left in the United States. Not my circles. I don't know any people, and I'm around a lot of people in the Republican Party and from coast to coast in California. I wouldn't be part of a party that was promoting something like that. And so anyway, so we'll see what happens. We'll keep posting. I'm gonna start keeping tabs on that. We'll revisit this topic later on. One last topic I did want to bring up today. I just woke up this morning, and I hate to be negative downer guy, and it's really sort of not something that you'll catch from me on social media very frequently. But I do have to say, Twitter has become kind of boring. I don't know if you agree or not, but Twitter is like, there are people who do well and will continue to be interesting on on Twitter. I think Mike Cernovich is interesting. I think it's interesting what he's doing right now and not allowing people to comment, or allowing only a few, some people to comment in order to have a more constructive conversation. But generally speaking, Twitter is just kind of boring. And part of the reason is, and this is user feedback Twitter, if you want some, unsolicited, is that people like me, for example, who have been blocked out of Twitter, who have lost, a third of their followers, you kind of walk on eggshells. I mean, I don't want to get thrown off Twitter. It's not going to be, it wouldn't be fun. I don't want to, I want to kind of keep up a little bit with what's going on. It's potentially an unbelievably vibrant tool for connecting with people, particularly when you're involved in a political campaign. But, you want to be able to say what you want to say. That's certainly nonviolent, maybe sometimes a little bit insulting, and sometimes snarky. But, you just don't know when your number is going to come up, when Twitter's going to find a reason to throw you off. Right now, the chairwoman of the California Republican Party, of the almost 5 million, the leader of the almost 5 million Republicans in California, last I checked, she's been thrown off Twitter. Now, if you ever saw any of her tweets, they're so non-abrasive. I mean, it's such a it's just promoting, Republicans doing good things, basically. I don't even think she really challenges Democrats when they do bad things. Maybe she says stuff about Newsom. But she didn't have a particularly big following. She wasn't particularly active. But here's what Twitter does. They did this to me, and they've done it to a lot of other people. They send you, and I think it's like a shot over the bow. I don't think it's a real thing. They say, oh, there's been suspicious activity on your account. Stand by. We'll when we sort it out, we'll let you back on. And then there's no contact from them. And in fact, they did it recently. There's a parody account, John Dennis SF, Evil John Dennis it is now. And that account got locked out for an extended period of time too. I have been locked out, of my account during the congressional campaign in 2020. A big chunk of 2019, I got locked out of my account. And there was no reason for it. There's no suspicious activity. They certainly don't tell you about it, but it's just an excuse, I think, to get you off. So what that message is, the message that Twitter sends you when they do that is, we're watching you, and you're going to get, if you say the wrong thing, you're going to get tossed. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've had friendships with people who I think were real friends, and but they're the kinds of people who, will block people out of their life. If you offend them, I just had an incident with somebody recently. Somebody I was friends with for a really long time got offended by something, and it's all kind of doesn't make sense. And then all of a sudden, they don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't know if you've ever had friends like that. I've known a few people like that throughout my life, and that's kind of what Twitter is like, And so you just kind of it's sort of. And what happens is that it limits the energy that you put into it, because you're just like, okay, I want to stay on the platform, and I want to kind of keep up with what's going on in the news and the thread of life. So you don't put that much energy in it. You don't put the more challenging things you might put into it. That's where we are with Twitter. I think it's not a good thing for their business model. Look, they're running their business. They know what they're doing. They've built an interesting and successful platform. But to me, also as a business guy, I look at what they're doing, and it doesn't make sense from a business point of view to behave this way. For example, here's one thing they could do. They could have different levels. People have said pick your algorithms, but let's just make it simple for other people. Let's say that they picked out, you have Twitter A, Twitter B, Twitter C, a hot, medium, mild. You can take the hot and spicy language where everything's nothing's off limits. Medium, which is like, you'll take certain topics, and mild, where Twitter does all the monitoring and boots people off of that portion of the platform. You can have a subscription service for a Twitter subscription where you can say whatever the hell you want, and Twitter is not going to moderate it. I mean, there are all these different things they can do. But I think they don't pursue these other avenues, these ways of creating different portals. depending on the level of free speech with which you are comfortable. I think they don't do that because they like the power. They want the power to be able to throw you off the platform. And it's creating a really, muted, lower energy, platform. It's really kind of a shame, and it's opening them up to competition, possibly even competition from foreign entities. So we'll see how this plays out. It's interesting to me that today Apple said that they are going to start redistributing the Parler app. The Parler app. Parler right now largely exists badly, in my view, on desktop, and but it's not going anywhere until it gets back to being delivered as an app. That message was also sent loudly and clearly. Either you follow our rules, or else we're going to shut you down. And it was also a favor to Twitter that Parler got shut down. Twitter was told who to block and whose followings to mute and who to actually throw off of Twitter. That happened right after I think it happened on January 8th or 9th. All of a sudden, one day I lost 3,000 followers in 3 hours, and I'm down 33% from my peak level of Twitter followers, and I was already being shadow banned. And the Democrats dictated, according to Jack Dorsey in his own, you can look at his Twitter thread from back, around that time. He said that they told them, who they wanted to get rid of. And at the same time, the Democrats went to Apple and got Parler shut down. So the payoff to Twitter was that their competition got nixed. This is Jack Dorsey. This isn't me. So anyway, it's kind of disappointing. It's deflating. I'm gonna speak as freely as I can here on YouTube for as long as that's possible, and any other platform that will have me. I by the way, we're gonna start. Hey, Mario, remember we've got to set up. Rumble has a live stream, by the way. Let's make sure we get set up there. I don't know if they run it through OBS, but we can maybe set it up separately somehow. But yeah, I know Dinesh D'Souza is involved with Rumble. I like it. It's actually a really nice platform. It's got ways to go before it can compete with the features of YouTube, but it's pretty cool. So, hopefully competition will sort all this out. It seems like Democrats and the tech business have a way of creating a bottleneck so that they can choke off any competition. But let's see how it plays out, because I think not having a dynamic social media platform is really a missed opportunity, and also creates the opportunity for bad actors in places like, foreign countries, nameless foreign countries, to step into the void and come up with other platforms that deprive the American business community of leadership in that particular business. So anyway, with that, let me finish up. I've got a kind of a funny week this week because my wife's out of town, so I'm doing triple duty in some areas. So these are going to kind of be limited to what we've got today, 33 minutes. But look forward to chatting some more and getting some other content to you. So please, before you go, please subscribe to John Dennis Report on YouTube. It's also John Dennis Report on Facebook. And then on Twitter and Instagram, it's the same handle, @RealJohnDennis on Twitter and Instagram. But really do subscribe to the John Dennis Report on YouTube. I appreciate your attention and for you joining us today. And look forward to another discussion tomorrow. See you tomorrow at 2 p.m. on the West Coast and 5 p.m. on the East. Have a good day.